Thumbs up. That's what we want. Good. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular meeting for Monday, January 27th, 2025. I'd ask that everyone present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batkins.
Here.
Mr. Brado.
Here.
Mrs. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Olgiati.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. Witt. Here. Mr. Verkest.
Here. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of January 13th, 2025, approval of the bills in the amount of $1,542,429.75, approval of the preliminary December 2024 revenue and expenditure report. Unless there's any changes or discussion, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
I've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. I'm not aware of any changes, additions, subtractions. If there are none, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
We got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mrs. Brown to approve the agenda as presented. Discussion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is announcements. I do have a few announcements. The senior Metro Park passes are now officially sold out. We do still have the $35 discounted permits for Harrison Township residents available at the treasurer's office. Please visit the treasurer's office for more information or to purchase those passes. With the various holidays throughout the year, sometimes it is hard to know if your trash pickup will be affected. For an easy list of holidays and the waste hauler schedule, you can visit our township website under the residents tab. And that's where you'll find all of information about our waste hauler. Our township library continues to offer many fun and exciting programs for our residents. You can check out the monthly calendar posted on the library's website or contact the library directly, 586-329-1261 for more details. And as always, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445, or visit our website, harrisontownshipmi.gov, or follow us on Twitter or X at harrisontwpmi. Any board announcements? Hearing none, I'd like to invite Mrs. Barb Zinner up to the podium, our county commissioner, to give us an update.
Hello, everybody. Great to see you all. And the room looks really good. I'm excited to see when it's finished completely. It really looks nice. Let me bring this out. Happy New Year. It feels like a heat wave in here compared to what it has been. I didn't know that it would be so warm. That's nice. At the county, we're in full gear and moving fast in January. Usually January, February, and March are a little slow, but this year we hit it running, which is good. At the end of the year, there was something brought to us about the Verkillian building. It's an old building. It's hard for seniors to get in there. It's more of a thought that, do we want to work on this? Do we want to redo this? Maybe not. What do we want to do? So that's coming toward our way. We'll have to see how that pans out. On the Macomb County Board, you probably all know this, but for the public, I'll go over it a little bit. We had 2 commissioners that left the board, and we have 2 commissioners that came on the board. They seem real nice. We all get along very well. And then, of course, at the end of December, Don Brown, the chairman for, he'd been on the board for 34 years, said he was leaving, going to work with Candace. So that was shocking to almost all of us. And, but, you know, things just happen and they keep going on, and that's life. So he's gone, but he's not far away. And Joe Sabatini from Macomb Township was elected by our board as per the charter. He is now the chairman. He had been the finance chair, as Phil Kraft, from Chesterfield, was the vice chair of under finance. He's a really great man, real smart, real nice, but our whole board is really very nice. So he's at the helm, and Harold Haw has been a vice chair for the board for quite a few years, and I think it's all going to work out well. Now, Don Brown's commissioner seat had to be replaced, and we had 15 candidates send in paperwork to be considered, which was, you know, a lot of people, and 3 of them decided not to run after they saw us, actually, but I don't think that had anything to do with it. But the rest of them, I mean, all of them had incredible resumes. Just all backgrounds were wonderful. They had finance, they had worked on boards before. It was a hard decision to make, but most of us chose Ken Goyke, who had been in Lansing and on a commissioner board and was really ready to go. And that's really what we needed in the north. There are things happening up there that need to be, you know, overseen, and he knows what to do right now. And we're not going to be voting on anyone for 2 years because elections are costly. In some of those areas in the north, they really don't have a lot of money. So that was the decision between the lawyers and Clerk Forlini, and we stayed according to the charter. Several of the commissioners were, we were all invited, but several of us were able to go to the Assumptions Greek Center at the bottom of the shores. And Claude, forget his last name, Molinari?
That sounds right, yep.
Molinari and the executive after we had lunch, they were up talking. Often the executive's talking to someone. And, you know, Mark smiles all the time. He smiles a lot. I don't think I've seen him that happy with that conversation. He was just having a blast. But that was related to the football games. And, you know, we had the draft, and then we had the game, but we can't really talk about the game, I know. But anyway, this man is, and I'm going to read this, President and CEO of Detroit Metro Convention and Visitors Bureau. He knows everything. You probably know him, because you all might even probably know him. Very pleasant man to listen to, and he brings in business. Now, you all know this, but for other people who don't get to see these people, he was an easy person to listen to, too. And what he was explaining is, in Detroit, because Detroit now is reverberating around the country. It's happening in Detroit. But when they call to book something, how many hotel rooms do you have? Because I need 6,000 hotel rooms. Well, I can give you 4,000. Click. So they're really going to put an emphasis on building more hotel rooms right there. And of course, that all comes out to all of us in the suburbs, too. So anyway, it was an interesting conversation, pleasant time, and it was just a nice time. And it was good to see the executive so happy. Of course, he's always happy. But anyway, it was a great afternoon, and learned a lot. All right, thank you very much. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda, excuse me, item D1 from the Fire Department, Board members, last fall, we executed a letter of agreement with the firefighters union to allow us to hire individuals who have completed their paramedic training but are waiting to take and pass the paramedic exam. Shortly afterward, we hired Ian Creech under this letter of agreement. Ian recently passed his paramedic exam. I recommend that we promote Ian Creech to probationary firefighter effective January 17th, 2025. That's at the step one wage scale defined by the collective bargaining agreement. And it is a one-year probation that he begins within our IAFF union. So that's the recommendation, discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominelli with support by Mr. Brado. And board members, you may recall I did send some correspondence on this. When we drafted this letter of agreement, we said it's a 90-day period, and that's what's got to, this isn't going to be something where it lingers. We hadn't contemplated the notion that if we're in the 87th day of that probation and the person passes, what do we do? I felt that it was pretty obvious that the intent was if they were doing well, that we would want to promote them. That was the chief's intent. He was satisfied with this gentleman's performance to date. And one of the benefits, normally when we hire a probationary firefighter, we have, I guess I'll say, kind of a training probation, right? They've got to learn our procedures. They've got to learn, some of the basics about our department. This individual, as of January 17th, was able to count towards staffing because of the 87 days that he had spent doing, basically riding along, just not counting towards staffing. So far the system works, and we're in good shape. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello, a support by Mr. Brado. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next, also from the Fire Department regarding Engine 2. Board members, we had R&R, which is our repair company, replace the rear spring pack on Engine 2. Engine 1 is still out of service with warranty repairs. We were running Ladder 1 and our loaner engine while Engine 2 was being repaired. The repairs are in the amount of $8,807.13, so we'll be looking for a motion to approve the R&R invoice for repairs to Engine 2 in the amount of $8807.13.
I'll make the motion.
All right, is there support?
I'll support that.
All right, any discussion?
Just, how long has that unit been out of warranty for? Was this a warranty issue? Could this have been a warranty issue, or?
Meaning E1?
Yes.
E1, I couldn't tell you that offhand. The chief could say. I know that it's been in and out with some issues, and while I may not be happy with the fact that we've had some warranty issues, I'm more than happy with the fact that chief not only has been on top of it, but he's also said that, the manufacturer needs to provide a loaner. I mean, we buy a brand new, engine. It's not brand new anymore, but, relatively new. But I couldn't tell you offhand.
Okay.
I think it's been a function of being in and out.
Okay.
And the fact that we're still getting warranty work on it is in large part due to the chief forcing them to say, like, this warranty doesn't start until you give me a clean vehicle.
Right.
Because out the door, we never have.
Yeah, because I've noticed some of the older units have been on the road, and I was kind of wondering what was happening with these. I've been seeing them out more and more, so I'm just kind of curious in terms of if we're still having some of those problems with some of these newer units that we've had before in the past. So,
Yep.
okay.
All right. We didn't vote on that, no?
No.
Any other discussion?
Do we know how long it's gonna take? Is it, you happen to have any- okay.
The repairs are complete.
Oh, the
Engine
repairs
2
are
is,
complete.
this is one of those scenarios where it's kind of difficult because
Okay,
they come and do the repairs at the station. So, kind of like, hey, we need this done. They begin the work. We don't, oftentimes get an invoice until after the work is complete. But there really isn't
Okay.
we don't have a choice. So the short answer,
Okay,
work
it's
is
good.
complete.
It's done, that's
Yep,
wonderful.
Yep. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no Public comment, we have a motion by Mrs. Brown with support by Mr. Brado to approve the R&R invoice for repairs to engine number 2. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next, item D3 from the Fire Department regarding the Prevention Division. Board members, Fire Marshal Shackett is requesting that we improve our current fire prevention fee schedule with the attached proposed permit fee schedule for the reasons listed below. The modified fee schedule will create a one-tier system for permits, which is much more in line with other municipalities. It will reduce the fee for the service provider through a one-time yearly registration fee. The new system will create an à la carte system for contractors pulling permits, making the new fee schedule more cost-effective. And then we did add some services that are not common but are necessary for larger projects. There's no increases to the existing fees. Fire chief supports the proposed modifications, so the recommendation would be to approve or adopt the new fire prevention fee schedule as presented. Is there discussion or is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Olgiati. We do have the old and new fee schedule. It has simplified things greatly with a new fee schedule, so comfortable with that. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next, Water and Sewer Department, item E1. And when we say it's water and sewer, this item is really for the general fund, but our Public Services Director did the homework and work on this, and I believe the chief might have helped out with this grant. Harrison Township received a grant from MMRMA, which is our liability insurance carrier, for mitigating sidewalk trip hazards within the township. The grant is $2,500 that can be used toward the purchase of a walk-behind concrete planer, with the remainder of the cost coming from the general fund. The folks investigated currently, how do we grind the sidewalk? We've got a little generator, a wagon, and a handheld grinder. It's pretty inefficient. This is the appropriate piece of equipment for fixing shifted sidewalk to get rid of trip hazards. Seems like there's one predominant manufacturer for this product, cost of $74.75. We'll get $2,500 back from MMRMA, so we're really looking about a $5,000 expense for the general fund. This then will be a tool that can be used when we learn of a trip hazard. We can go out and grind it. Per our policy, we're not looking for reimbursement, so if we see a scenario where there's a sidewalk that we can fix, we take care of that, and hopefully that reduces the cost to residents so that slabs don't need to be replaced at a much higher cost.
And that's probably going to be like a half inch or less, something like that.
They'll do a couple inches with this. I believe I think
It depends on the thickness of the slab.
it does,
What
right?
they can work with, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I want to say like an inch and a half
Yeah.
is the tolerance where liability is questionable.
Yep.
So if it were 2-inch, like there's still growing case law on this, I feel, because some of the laws have changed. But this is capable of grinding inches. It's just,
How many grinder wheels do you want to go through?
yeah. But when I think of the size, how many neighborhoods do we have that don't have sidewalks, right? So you kind of start to pare that down. I definitely think this is a wise investment. This is the right tool for the job, and this will save our it'll potentially save us some liability.
Yep.
And costs, and it'll definitely save our residents.
And it saves us money in the long term
For
too,
sure.
because right now, if the general fund pays for the water and sewer guys to go out and grind them by hand, this thing's gonna take half the time, you'd think, at
Correct.
a bare minimum.
Absolutely.
Well,
This
like
is the right
we have
tool.
a sidewalk on a new one that's been put in on South River Road, right near Hazel. And I don't know if you recall, but the cement kind of fell short of where it's supposed to plane out to the asphalt.
To
Is
the
it some-
road?
Yeah, is
I
there something
think-
where they could use it for that too?
No, but I think our guys already patched that up.
I saw them out
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
yeah, but if that ever happened somewhere else, I wonder if that could.
This is really primarily for, like, when you've got, say you've got a tree root and it pushes up a square of
Yeah.
concrete, just to grind that off so that it's a smooth, kind of a beveled transition, so.
Make a motion to approve the purchase of the concrete planer.
All right, for support.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. We talked about it a little bit. Is there further discussion, board members?
I noticed that it has a vacuum port. It's equipped with a vacuum port. How are we capturing that grinding?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know that. This was just, this was the, this was just approving a purchase. And I'll say this, and that just in fairness, this is a tool that we've never owned before.
Yeah.
Right? And so, when Justin did some investigation, he felt like this was the right product. But to your point, there's probably, I don't want to say a learning curve, but, like anything else, you try this out, you say, hey, what do I need? What other accessories do we need? But I don't think there's anything that we might purchase to go with this that's outside of the spending limit that he already has,
Okay.
so.
I would assume that he knows what OSHA's requires as far as putting concrete dust into the air. So that's
Yeah.
the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. He may, I don't know that answer, but I also tend to believe this is one of those things, you buy a new tool, you read up on it, say, hey, maybe we need to get this or that. I just don't know offhand what that is, so.
If we find out what it is, send it over to the county, because when they did North Point, they didn't follow the rules. So,
Okay, all right,
yeah, might want to let them know that.
all right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado to make this purchase. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
It
Thank you,
wasn't the
Board.
county, it was our contractor, I want to clarify.
It was, right, it's a contractor for the county, yep, yep. Next, item F1 from the treasurer's office.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The senior center budgeted $5,000 for improvements to the senior center in 2025. The senior center coordinator asked for the cost and installation of a projector and screen, which was needed for senior activities. While investigating, I found that purchasing a 98-inch TV monitor is approximately half the cost of a projector and screen. The monitor is approximately $3,400 and the projector is approximately $6,800. Purchasing a monitor versus a projector allows greater flexibility because it handles up to 4 HDMI inputs, built-in internet streaming. The ambient room light will not wash out the TV monitor like a projector would, and the ability to easily relocate the device. Connection ports will be hardwired into the Senior Center Coordinator's office with an additional port for guest presenters at the monitor TV location. The Senior Center Coordinator also thought the large monitor would be a better choice. So what we're looking at, and I included the estimate, is $23.99 for an 86-inch monitor, $1,000 upgrade, and I'm asking for $100 for unexpected cost fluctuations. This will be billed to the senior center, and I'm asking for an approval to purchase the 98-inch monitor TV as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins, is there support?
Support.
Support by Mrs. Brown. Discussion, board members? I think this is a great option. I know that the new coordinator had talked about having maybe some movies, but there's all kind of different things that you can use this for. So this is just another tool for her to be able to provide services for the seniors, so good job. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is item F2, also from our treasurer's office.
Thank you again, Mr. Supervisor. Phishing and cyber threats continue to present a liability through email and websites accessed through our township network. Recommendations to implement security awareness training across the township has also been documented and communicated to us by our internal auditors and insurance companies with a recommended implementation date of May 2025. This security awareness training is based on a one-year, the security awareness training I'm proposing is based on a one-year required commitment. The training will consist of one online training session. Actually, it's an online training course, not a session, for all employees based on 100 minimum email users. And it's also going to include periodic and random security testing after the training. Subsequent testing scheduled for employees who fail the testing regimen. The minimum number of participants or seats per year is 100 for the initial testing. The rollout target is March and April of 2025. Once the initial testing is complete, we can reduce the subscription seats to 50 participants for ongoing testing and additional education through the rest of the year. These are 50 dynamic seats, and employees will be rotated through these 50 seats by our IT vendor, SYO, to reduce overall training. So basically what happens, let me just explain this to you. We have to buy 100 seats. When we buy 100 seats, and we have approximately 85 users that we currently have in the township. That's between employees and elected officials. So what will happen is everybody will sign up for the cyber training. They'll go through online at their own pace. They'll be given a certain amount of time, maybe 7 days or 2 weeks to complete it. Once complete, and once everybody's completed with that first phase, we can take our subscription down to a 50-seat base at $250 a seat, and I should have mentioned that before, instead of 100, because the only thing we're doing is we're going to be doing sampling testing. So we don't need to keep another 100 seats active. And the reason for this is the supervisor's office is currently working on a grant so we can have continuous security training throughout the enterprise, and that's really what we need. As new things come on board, we need to do the training. Typically in the private sector, cyber training is a annual required course. So we're trying to model that same structure, and we need to be, they're getting, cybersecurity is getting more and more, there's more and more threats coming through every day, so we need to make sure we stay up with the threats. So we feel that the grant that the supervisor's office is working on right now should fund this going forward after this 1 year that we sign up at the current rate I'm proposing. So hopefully this will be the only time I'd have to come in front of you for this. Of course, if the grant gets turned down, we'll have to look at another option. But basically, just to go over the costs, it's $250 per user per seat per month. The minimum user seat count is 50 after the initial month, and that's the 100 is the initial month. And we can change the active users every month to do the testing. So the recommendation is to enroll up to 100 seats at $2.50 per month, then reduce to the minimum of 50 for the next 11 months as rolling phishing testing and cybersecurity testing for all users takes place. Again, there's approximately 85 total employees. That's between fire, building, water, sewer, and elected officials. Basically, what's going to happen, 100 seats at $250 a month for 1 month would be $250. The $50 per 50 seats for months 2 through 12 at $250 a month ends up being $1,375 for a total of $1,625. That's for a whole year of security training and testing. So I'd be looking for a motion to approve $1,625 to fund 1 year of all employee security awareness training and testing. And I've included also a fact sheet on the security awareness training that talks about the type of training that everyone will be required to go through.
And this is within our spending limit, but so when Mr. Tominello, I had emailed him about the audit thing, and he put this on the agenda, and so it really doesn't have to be on the agenda, but because it's an ongoing commitment, I wanted the board to be aware that this is something that would be, expected as an expense every year going forward.
And we're not making a multi-year commitment, so, in other words, the intent would be that as phishing attempts and cybersecurity threats evolve, it's important that our employees are aware because, that can be a big part of the prevention. And this is an area that's only growing. We just had this conversation. I was in Oakland County for their Supervisors Association meeting, and we had a discussion about the various types of attacks and costs. Municipalities that have had to pay ransomware. We have had a ransom attack, and our IT provider was able to solve that problem, I guess, for lack of a better word, or get us out of it. This is a recommendation from Jason.
This is a recommendation from myself and Mr. Witt.
Okay.
Only because we were asked in our last audit that, we start security awareness. And then I believe for our insurance company, from actually 2023, that we, implement a security awareness training program.
Right. I guess what I mean is Jason.
We asked him, he said this is the one to do.
Yeah.
So what I did is I did go online and look at several different security training providers. They are looking for a long-term commitment. The prices were extremely higher when I got these prices from Jason from SYO. They were, I thought, very reasonable. And the thing I really liked about it is after everyone goes through the training, what happens is SYO sends out random testing. So you'll get random emails that, are going to test your experience through your training. And if you fail, if you open one, it gets loaded to his database, and now you have to retake the training. So that could happen once or several times or until we get it right, which is good because, everybody learns at different times. Not everyone's exposed to these type of threats every day, so, I think that's a good ongoing training. I think that's something that, we can capture. And Mr. Verkesh, you're right. Every seminar or training or anything that any of us attend relative to municipal cybersecurity, they're always talking about that and how we need to tighten up, how we need to make sure that, we're not victims of cybersecurity or any kind of ransomware.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those areas, it's not unlike, other theft prevention efforts that you make at your home. Hey, do you leave the lights on at night, or, what steps do you take? This is just kind of being a step ahead of some other, maybe more vulnerable folks. I mean, every little thing we can do makes us that much less of a target. So I think this is the right thing to do. What I was saying was, if we try it out, we find we don't like it, we can always switch to another provider or look at another system, but I think this is a responsible first step in the education process, so.
I've gone through programs like this and had full staff team do the type of, when they send random emails and all that, and you would be surprised how many people failed. People that I wouldn't have thought would have failed. And it's just, it is incredibly important, and I'm not sure which one we used at my previous employer, but it worked, so.
All right. Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve $1,625 to fund 1 year of all employee security awareness training and testing.
All right, is there support?
Support?
Got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mrs. Brown to approve this training. Any discussion?
I have a question. Larry, do you happen to know if part of the training that I took for this phishing was a button on my email that says, hey, I believe this is a phishing event? Will that be added to our email? And if so, who's going to say if it was a phishing attack or not?
I don't know the answer to that
Okay.
question. I'd have to check.
Because
with SYO.
obviously everybody has a full-time IT department, and I just send it to IT, and they'll say it's legit or it's not.
I just wonder if, because
Yeah.
I know that was part of my training,
So,
that I aced.
so
by
although
the way.
we do have a lot of, we have code that catches those type of threats. The thing is, because threats are being updated all the time.
Yeah.
You know, we could have an exit that maybe suppress one today and a new one comes out tomorrow. One thing we did add, and it was probably maybe 8 months ago, maybe 10 months ago, we added a warning to all emails that come from outside of the organization. That was sort of a first step, you know, because anything coming outside, you know, we need to look at that as suspect, right? You need to make sure that you know who it's coming from. So that was sort of a first step, so this is the second step, and it's, I think it lends a lot more credence as far as education with cybersecurity.
I was just gonna say, unfortunately, because of how we operate, like, there's always gonna be a window for, like, if somebody sends me something that says FOIA, I have to click on the attachment. Like, it's the law, I have to do it. So like, you know, you take every step you can, take every common sense choice you can to protect yourself, but, you know, you're never 100%.
And the grant that we made reference to, there was initially a window where we saw this grant, didn't really, I guess, pay it a whole lot of heed. It didn't seem like something we were interested in. We ran it by Jason. He, you know, he definitely said, no, I think there is value to this. There's a rolling window for the grant, but the grant will provide quite a bit of these kinds of things. In other words, I can't give you the answer to your question about whether there's a button, but like reading through the grant, you know, you sort of gloss over like, I don't know what any of this means. When we ran it by Jason, he definitely said like, wow, no, there's a bunch of stuff in here that this will pay for that I think we should do. And it's a pretty, if I say a generous grant, like it covers most of the costs that you have. So this is the first step in what I think is probably the pursuit of additional things that you're talking about. While I can't tell you specifically that's what's included in the grant, I feel like the conversation I had with Jason, what you're talking about is the kind of things that this grant will fund. So,
Great.
All right, any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is item G1 from the clerk's office.
Yes, so tonight we are holding our Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, public hearing. And the purpose of that is to hear views from citizens concerning community development and housing needs as required under the Housing and Community Development Act as amended. So we've talked about this before. The program allows for two different types of money to come into the community and to be allocated or asked for by us. One is our public services amount, and that's $17,500. There's a typo in your board packet. It says $17,750, but it's $17,500. And historically, that's the money that we appropriate towards our dial-a-ride senior bus system. But obviously, we have nonprofits that have applied for and asked for that money. But any money that we do give to any nonprofit outside of the dial-a-ride is money that the general fund would then have to make up to cover the cost of dial-a-ride. The other part of the project of Community Development Block Grant is the bricks and mortar section. So we can apply for up to two $150,000 grant applications for those types of bricks and mortar projects. Last year, we were successful in our application for $150,000 for sewer lining on Homeview, Edmond, and Marillac off of Ballard. And so that project will be going out to bid next month. And what we're looking at for board approval tonight and consideration is to apply for two separate $150,000 projects for St. Christopher and Anchorage streets. Those are streets that we worked with Water and Sewer Department to identify as a potential high rate of infiltration and would benefit greatly from the sewer lining. They also are about the right length to take up about $150,000 worth of money, and that's what you try and do with these federal dollars is match the project to the money. Because they go through the Davis-Bacon project, you're usually paying more than we would otherwise on the open market. So we're trying to line those two things up from a cost standpoint. And we've also been in discussion with Macomb County in the event that they have money. Every year, they're always in an urgency to spend the money that they do get, because sometimes projects fall through. The bids don't come in the way they want. The nice thing about this subdivision is there's Magdalena, also right there. So we would have a third project available and ready to go quickly in the event the county says, hey, we got an extra 150 ready to spend. So they've been pre-approved by the county's process, so we're good to go there. So that's what we'd be looking for. But first, we'd have to make a motion to open the public hearing to allow for anybody to speak on what we spend our CDBG money on.
I'll make that motion.
There's support.
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado to open the CDBG public hearing at 7:41 PM. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Batkins?
I think you have,
One second.
So this is the
Just
motion to
to
open the
open.
public hearing. Yep, so we're not in a public hearing, but soon if we move, we will be.
All right.
Mr. Witt?
Yes, Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. All right, now the public hearing is open, and anyone who's present who wishes to discuss CDBG funding is invited to the podium to address the board. Absolutely.
And I just would ask if you just clearly state your name, so that way I get it in the public hearing minutes properly. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Warnock, and I'm a volunteer coordinator at Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers, or IVC. The number of older adults in Macomb County is expected to increase by more than 90% by 2040. This group of seniors needs extra support services due to changes that come with aging, chronic health conditions, or disabilities. At the same time, family structures are changing, often leaving seniors with nobody nearby to help. For over 30 years, our nonprofit organization has been providing free basic assistance to hundreds of frail, older, and physically challenged adults, helping them remain safely in their homes with the help of hundreds of volunteers. This assistance helps with transportation, chores, respite breaks, errands, and reducing loneliness. These opportunities provide fulfilling experiences for those who wish to volunteer, as well as support for those in need. The CDBG Safe at Home project of IVC is part of our larger chore and repair program. The project was developed to provide additional chore and repair services in communities that allocate funding for this purpose. Safe at Home allows us to assist low to moderate income seniors and physically challenged adults with indoor and outdoor chores, minor home repairs, and routine housekeeping. We identify individuals who cannot do these tasks on their own and have limited resources and prioritize those with the highest need. We are requesting CDBG funds to increase the number of low-income citizens we can reach, to grow our program, as well as to coordinate the volunteers who do these services. IVC provides over 20,000 hours of help over all of its services to nearly 500 people in need each year. Although we have yet to be granted CDBG funding from Harrison Township, we still have been able to fulfill chore requests in your communities. We use funding that other communities give us that we are unable to do in their communities to do this. We completed 50 tasks in Harrison Township in the 2023-24 funding year, and we project at least as many projects in the upcoming year. We're confident that the addition of CDBG funding would allow us to assist more residents of Harrison Township, including possibly my mother, who has lived here for over 30 years. We regularly get phone calls and notes of thanks for the things that our volunteers do. One volunteer who went out to fix a running toilet noticed that a screen door was sticking, and he fixed it while he was there. Another volunteer stepped in and did housework and chores when the person she visited went into the hospital unexpectedly. So other examples would be replacing locks, washing windows, raking leaves, routine housekeeping, and installing smoke alarms. With CDBG funding, the Safe at Home project can continue to grow, and assistance can be granted to a variety of lower-income Harrison Township senior citizens and disabled adults. Thank you to the Board of Trustees for your consideration, and any dollar amount granted is greatly appreciated in our program, and we hope to partner with you going forward. If anyone here tonight knows of any seniors who might use our assistance and are looking to give the gift of time as a volunteer, please let us know by calling our office or visiting our website at ivcinfo.org. Are there any questions I can answer? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment regarding CDBG? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing at 7:45.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Tominello, with support by Mr. Olgiati to close the public hearing at 7:45. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. All right, thank you. Is there a motion, board members?
So if the board's comfortable with the proposed allocation, I'd offer a motion to allocate the $17,500 in public services to the Dial-A-Ride program and to authorize the clerk to apply for up to two $150,000 grants for the sewer lining as proposed.
All right, a motion by Mr. Witt. Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Badkins. Discussion, board members?
As I said before, we always get great organizations that come and apply, but our Dial-A-Ride does provide a vital service for a lot of our residents as well, and if we don't fund that adequately, that's money that has to come from someplace else.
So it is, different municipalities make different choices there, but when you talk about the population that IFV serves, IVC, we serve some of that population in a different way, and the funds that we get don't cover that cost. So there's a fundamental belief this board has had over several terms that if we donate to any one of the various charities, all of which, I hate to rank charities, but there's plenty of them that are worthwhile, we're in essence reaching into our residents' tax dollars, saying, well, we're going to not voluntarily take some of your tax dollars, and instead of using them to provide this shuttle service that we think is a core function of local government, we're going to give it to another charity, and we're going to ask you for more tax dollars to do. So we have historically not contributed, independent of the fact that, just like the organization you represent, there's so many others that have appeared with. And so this is that time of the year where you hate to sit here and say, we're not going to support your charity, but it's because in essence, we're supporting kind of a service already to a lot of the same citizens. So I don't like that message, but I think it's the responsible action, at least that this board believes to take. Any other discussion?
This is the one meeting of the year that I just wish we could do more for some of these
Sure.
different organizations, and I always feel so guilty about not being able to do it.
Agreed.
As much for them as I possibly would like, and it always gives me a sick feeling in my stomach. So
Yep.
I just would like to see us be able to help. So,
I want to hurry up and retire and be the screen door guy.
yeah, exactly.
To me, that's what I'm looking forward to, hopefully. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Badkins to allocate the $17,500 to the Dial-A-Ride program and apply for two $150,000 grants, CDBG grants, to fund projects for sewer lining for St. Christopher and Anchorage Streets. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you,
Board, and thank you to the speaker. Next on our agenda is H1. It's quite a ways down in your packet. It's actually on page 205, if that helps any board members. I'm sorry,
207.
207. So this was something that was brought before us previously. I think it was tabled, but it's back on the agenda regarding a lot split at 41285 Belvedere. Mr. Dominic Miori has been working with our assessing department to request a split of his lot. Went through the normal procedural process. We do have guess you'd say our ordinances define how you can request a lot split. The ordinance defines whether it can be granted or not granted. If this lot split is outside of what the ordinance allows, the assessor would deny it, which is what occurred in this case. We, sometime last year, put into place an appellate process where an applicant could appeal before the board to appeal that lot split denial, and that's what we have before us today. So there is the written request from the property owner and applicant or appellant. They did pay, they were denied the split, and so I believe they're here before us now. And so instead of trying to make their argument for them, I'd invite them up to tell us about the lot split request.
Good evening, board members. My name is Lawrence Mislinski. I'm here to speak in behalf of Dominic Marui on this proposal. We are requesting a parting of the tax ID of this property. There are 3 lots there. I refer to it as a plotting, not a split of the property, for the original split was in the original plat as 3 separate lots. In this case, others of which I will cite in the township, form property owners that the taxes would be less if combined in one tax ID without informing them of what the consequences would be. This grant, it will not be a precedent for the township as granted a parting of the tax ID in the near past. 2 examples are Tom and Joan Maluchuk in St. Clair Haven subdivision. They split or parted 2 properties in 2015. Another one was Paul and Stacy DeMaster, which they split into 2 40-foot IDs back in 2016. The Zoning Board of Appeals can grant a parting of the tax ID if it can show a hardship to the land, and in this case, the Township Board typically considers a hardship to the land as a unique situation where the property owner is unable to use the land in a reasonable manner due to zoning regulations, often because the property is unusual shape, topography, or other physical characteristics that make it impractical to develop according to the existing zoning rules, resulting in an unnecessary hardship. If the variance is not granted, essentially the property cannot be used for any permitted purpose without a significant financial loss or practical difficulty due to the zoning restrictions. In this case, it's a financial loss. Each one of these lots are worth approximately $200,000, and you would be taking $200,000 by taking or not allowing for 3 tax IDs on these 3 lots. If this is granted, the 3 lots could be developed with a new ordinance within the township. That is, a new building can be placed no closer than 12 feet from an existing building. There is sufficient room on the adjacent 2 lots to put 2 additional residents there with 12 feet between them without encroaching upon them. So this is what we're asking for.
I'd like to add a little bit if I could. My name is Dominic Mayeri. I bought this property in 1998. It was my first house purchase with my primary residence ever since. So I've been, a resident of Harrison Township for over 26 years. I've incurred some hardship. Ken's aware of this, that I had to lift my house because it flooded because the pumps would not drain the rainwater. Now, I've had flood insurance and house insurance, but neither of those cover rain. I had the pleasure of meeting Leo from Macomb County Road Commission, and his polite response to me was, well, buyer beware. So I guess he's not really responsible if the pumps don't clear, and when the pumps don't clear, I flood with rain. So the reason why I had to lift my house and invest well over $100,000 to repair it was due to rotten wood floors on the first floor, mold in the first floor. So obviously, when you lift a house, there's a lot of expense involved. So I've already endured a hardship of $150,000 in repairing my home. When I bought the property, I combined the tax IDs at the suggestion of the township, which made sense to me to save property taxes as a primary residence. My tax bills have always said lot 137, 138, 139, so to me, I always had 3 lots until I went to find out when an ordinance went in place in 2010, I believe, stipulating the amount of frontage that was needed to have a separate lot. So even though I have 3 lots, I only have 1 tax ID. And, you know, in talking with Larry, that's really what I'm seeking, is to go back to 3 tax IDs. And my tax bills always have shown 3 lots. I have 3 separate sewer taps, 1 for my existing home, 2 to the side of me. There are many 50-foot lots on my street. Probably the majority of the lots on Belvedere are 50-foot lots. The largest home on Belvedere is built on a 50-foot lot. It's about 3,500 square feet. So I'm really no different than my neighbors in that respect if I kept what I first purchased in 1998. So in the long and short, that's where we're at today. The house is almost done being repaired, and I hope to move back in or, you know, build another one next door. I don't plan on not being a resident in Harrison Township, so I like the community, you know, feels a little bit like country and city, you know, with the blacktop streets and whatnot, so I plan to be here for, you know, maybe the rest of my days. 26 years right now. I don't know how many more we all have left, but that's where I'm at today. Thank you for letting me, you know, tell you what my agenda is and what my issues are.
Okay.
I might also add, there are approximately 12 houses on North River Road and 16 on South River Road that are offset with respect to the center of the lot. They're like 1 to 2 feet off of one property line, and then ample room to the next building on the other side. So this is not unprecedented.
Okay. Any questions, discussion, board members?
Just some general discussion, I guess. My concern is that we're creating a non-conforming structure at this point. Like, if we granted the petition as it's drawn, if I'm to read the drawings correctly, it looks like there's only 3, almost 4 feet to the property line from the
Yes.
existing, and that would not be a conforming structure, correct? So it would be a non-conforming, so any changes to the building would require, you know, zoning issues, and I think, I don't know if that's a great precedent for us to create when there's a viable option here to create 2 lots that meet our zoning requirements.
I forgot to add, when I purchased the house, it's an exact same location it was 26 years ago when it had 3 lots with 3 tax IDs.
Sure.
So the house hasn't moved an inch. So,
I believe you.
okay, so suffering the financial hardship because I have 1 tax ID instead of 3 when I didn't know any better does not, and it's not in keeping with your precedent, that to me is not a viable option for me.
And I might add that my previous house on South River Road was 2 feet off of one property line. And Mr. Verkest was raised in a house that his property line was 2 feet off his house. So,
We're not talking about building a brand-new house, we're talking about an existing home for,
Right, but my assumption
50
is that
years.
you're splitting them to be able to build another structure, and so we're gonna have a 3 foot
no,
Eight
no. you
gap
have
on
9
your
foot.
line.
It'd be 9 feet off to, you know, to.
it would be 12 and a
12
half
feet
feet plus
total.
3 would be 15 and a half.
No, 9 plus 3 would be 12, because 12 is what's needed by the ordinance, right?
Yes.
So that's what it would be. We would comply
6
with
and
the
8.
building ordinances of 12 feet still.
Yeah, and I hear the petitioner, I feel perfectly, like, there's another option for them. They can have 2 lots
You have
tomorrow.
150,000 you can give me? 200,000 you can give me?
If we can trade for the back taxes that you've benefited for not paying since you've owned it?
Actually, I was given bad advice. If I didn't combine it to one tax ID, I still got the benefit of the cheaper taxes because it was adjacent property. So when I paid all my taxes. I own another house,
I
several
get it.
properties in Seattle, in, Harrison Township. I promise you, I've not cheated the township.
No, I know, and I'm not trying to go back and forth with you, but that's,
Well,
we have a zoning ordinance
Just
that
fact.
says that we want lots to be of a certain size. We have a path for these lots to be a certain size, and I don't feel there's a great
Deviated
reason to
that
go
from prior
otherwise.
precedent, so can you speak to that?
So these are the very reason why we created
Appeal board.
this appeal process is because when we talk about, let's just say that there's three potential kinds of lot splits. There's lot splits that are, I guess, administratively allowed, right? We've always had that. Someone comes in and says, hey, I've got, property and I'd like to split it. The assessor looks and says, this meets the ordinance. It's granted administratively. There is a process that we follow and other departments weigh in, but that's an obvious one. We've always had that. And then we get to a point where someone comes and says, well, I'm requesting a lot split, and it's been denied. And so you say, well, what's the scenario? As an example, the case that we have previously heard was an existing home on a something like 78 points, let's say 78 and a half foot lot, the home that was built in the 90s, with an adjacent 80-foot vacant lot. The lots in that subdivision are required to be 80 feet, so administratively, separating the 78.5-foot lot from the 80-foot lot was not allowed at that level. But it seems silly to argue over a foot and a half for a home that meets the lot requirement, that conforms, and just about every home on that street is built on a 70-some foot lot. So that would be one where it seems like, gosh, this is just really easy, and when we're done, we're creating an 80-foot vacant lot, which conforms and so forth. So that was an example of one where it just seems really difficult. Somewhere between there and somebody saying, well, I'd like to split 10 feet off and sell it. And you're like, well, you can't do anything with 10 feet. That's a ridiculous request. Somewhere in there reaches that point where we as a board might say this is problematic or not. That's really what we have here. I would use potentially, as an example, hypothetical. If there were a fourth lot in play here, and we had the ability for that first split to eliminate that offset, that side yard setback of 3 feet or 3.5 feet or whatever it is, and you could slap an extra 5 or 10 feet on there and eat it up in the other lots, for example, right? Like, you look for what is that creative solution? But these are 3 originally platted lots. They have been combined. To Mr. Witt's point, certainly one option is to split them and make 275s. The alternative would be the request that you have, 3 50-foot lots.
I guess one thing I'd like to add, if I could, please.
Yep.
I know that your job is to protect the residents and the township. To me, this is pretty simple from that standpoint. If you grant my request, a longtime resident, doesn't endure financial hardship. The plus side for the township is they get additional tax on other home that they wouldn't get otherwise. So to me, it's a win-win, and I waited this long because Ken mentioned that the appellate process would be available to me, and that's why I waited this long.
Well, the other thing, and just worth discussing, there's really 2 ways that this has been resolved. One is through this appellate process that was recent. The other is through litigation in circuit courts. I believe Mr. Mislinski referred to at least one case that I remember that did go through circuit court. And my point to you when we had the discussion was, if we're creating an appellate process and you were to file in circuit court, it'd be kind of silly because we just come back and say, well, we're working on an appellate process, and the judge would just kick it back to this point until we would make some decision at this
I
level.
appreciated your
Yeah.
help and your
Yeah,
standard.
oh, for sure.
That-
Right, but want to make sure it's clear. you always have the right to pursue
Yes,
litigation.
I understand.
But I was merely saying, if we're creating this process, we're gonna go in there, tell the judge we have this process that we're working on, and he's gonna say, he or she'll say, well, why don't you wait and do that
I've already
first?
spent 150, if I can avoid 10, 20 grand litigation.
That's right.
Rule one is, when you sue, the lawyers do well.
There you go.
That's rule one.
Yeah. So,
That was told me by a lawyer, by the way.
Yeah.
So it was-
yeah. Other board comment or discussion? We've got a member liaison to the zoning board and a liaison to the planning commission. This seems like that's kind of in that wheelhouse. So I for one would value the input of those members.
Well, again, I think the only thing I have to say is probably what was said, if granted, you're actually creating a non-conforming use, so that really is, that's typically not practice of planning. And again, that being that 3/8 side yard, basically creates a non-conforming predicament. Splitting to 3. Splitting to 2 makes a lot of sense. But again, I understand financially, that's probably not what the petitioner is looking for. So I think that's my thoughts.
So splitting to 2 lots means you'd build 1 house?
That's all you could build.
Yep.
Township gets 1 taxes from 1 house instead of 2.
But it falls in line with the ordinance, right? So
True,
We're
but if-
we're not creating a hardship.
But am I splitting the lots or am I splitting my tax IDs? Because my tax bill
I think
still
it's
says
sort of
3
one and the
lots.
same, right?
So I'm
It's-
thinking I still have 3 lots.
And it is, they are combined into one lot, they're legal.
Well, one parcel.
No,
So-
they're combined into one lot.
The word
They're legal,
parcel.
but okay, they're one parcel, but the
Thank you.
legal description will
Has 3 lot
always,
names on it.
will always say the lots, because that's how it's platted. So if you had 3 feet of one and 4 of another and 50 of another, it's gonna say you have 3 lots.
So had I not combined the tax IDs or the parcel, as you say, today I could build 3 houses and 2 more houses and it would be
No.
no issue.
Yes.
You couldn't,
Yes.
no, you couldn't under ordinance, because you have 3, you are the single owner of all those lots, and it'd be the same issue that Mr. Mislinski cited earlier, where we had a property owner who wanted to build a house adjacent to theirs. They owned multiple lots and that did not conform, and they had to go a legal path to be able to build on that additional property. So by right, you could not build
If I went the
on
legal
each
path,
of those
then I
50-foot
could.
lots.
So
Like
a
with
point,
the legal
point,
path.
point of clarification, so that what state law says is, once a plat is approved by a municipality, in this case, clearly someone, that this Board of Trustees approved this plat at some point, we could look it up, that's not important. State law said you can't later then use zoning to take the rights of that lot owner away. So hypothetically, if we look at, let's just say that you only owned lot 138, and you wished to build on lot 138. State law said we can't stop you from building on lot 138. We allowed lot 138 to be created, so that right goes with the land. Our ordinance says if you own contiguous lots, whether they're combined or not, we then step in and start to require, whatever you want to call it, what can be done with that. So hypothetically, to your point, I think maybe a better way to say it would be, if you owned lot 139 with the structure on it, you owned lot 138, and you owned lot 137, and they were not combined, and you chose to sell lot 138 to someone, I can't prevent you from selling it. It's real property. The person who buys that could build on it, and if you kept 137, you could build on it. I can't prevent that.
Could build on it with a variance.
But if you own 137, 138, and 139, whether they're combined or not, you don't have, you can't lean on that state law that says, since you had a lot, I can build on it. Because our ordinance acknowledges that when they're contiguous, there's a requirement that they would need to be
And that
made
way I still
conforming.
wouldn't suffer the hardship, though. I couldn't build another house, but I'd be happy to build one and not lose $200,000.
Correct. You could sell 138, build on 137, and the law would, or sell whatever, right? But the point is that at this point, that clearly has come and gone, and the question before us is whether or not we would grant the split of these 3 lots, or whether we as a decision-making body see that there's an opportunity to make whatever that split is, right? So understand that it can be 275s, I believe. And is this 70-foot zoning?
I think it's 70.
Yeah. But alternatively, through this appellate process, I mean, at least as I understand it, we could come to an agreement at this meeting for, let's just say you said, you know what, I want to make it, there's 150 there, I want to make it 70 and 80, right? That would be an option also, right? Like we could have that discussion. Your request is specifically 3 50-foot separate parcels. And so the option is to, yeah, the option is to approve or deny that request. That doesn't preclude you from coming with some alternative proposal at some point in the future, but at this point, that's the request before us. So, any other discussion?
Well, I feel a little uncomfortable about weighing in on this because I'm the liaison for the ZBA, and based on whatever we decide here tonight, might decide whether or not it comes to the ZBA. So,
I don't think this can go to the ZBA.
No?
This is not.
oh, okay, well,
This is not the reason why we created this process is because there was no appellate process
okay,
for the denial from the assessor.
okay,
An option we considered was to make it appeal to the zoning board, but a lot split isn't really a zoning issue. A lot split is a real property
Okay.
issue, so that's why we decided to bring it.
If we're
in.
done today, and Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate your passion for it.
I'm not confused by the request.
Yeah, totally understand it.
Yeah.
Totally reasonable, I get it. If he's unhappy with the choice we made, he's got other avenues outside of us.
But the next step would likely be, presuming that he wished to continue to pursue this, it would be a circuit court appeal. It wouldn't be or a circuit court, unless, Mr. Huth, then make sure we're talking the right way here.
No,
That's all.
it's off.
Up is on.
Is that on?
Yeah.
That's on.
We turned it off so you wouldn't swear.
like the last meeting.
One mishap. No, I agree with your analysis. The board really did a nice job in streamlining the process, so it's kind of one-stop shopping here in the township. Go to the township board, you don't have to go to any other places if you're not satisfied with this spot. Circuit court's always available, that's true. When you think about it, circuit court really gets it back to the board again, because the judges often force the litigants to come back and talk to the board, so it really could be some expense and back to square one, because it could likely be the board talking about the same issue after we're in circuit court. Yeah, that's it.
Yep, okay, good. No, that answered the question.
So point of clarification, if we split this to 3 lots and he decides to build on these lots, it won't come to ZBA because there's a variance required?
The potential exists that, in other words, let's just say this, let's say there were let's say that when we were done, there were 3 50-foot lots, a home on one, and 2 vacant 50-foot
Right.
lots. I can't tell you what might be proposed on that. Someone could propose to use either of those 50-foot lots in a way that required a variance, but it wouldn't be predicated on the decision that's made here.
Okay.
If there's a decision here made to grant or deny the 50, hypothetically, if 3 50-foot lots were allowed to be created, it could or could not possibly result in a future variance request, but I don't think it would be dependent on this decision.
No, because
right?
they could build within the envelope
That's
of a
right. They
50
could,
foot
they could,
lot.
can
right,
build
you're
on it.
exactly right, yeah.
So two lots could net you a larger home, right?
Well,
You could build a larger home on,
Thinking about building a little smaller because I'm one person, so my current home is 2,900 square feet. So I think if I build something, it'll be a little bit smaller for one person.
okay.
Overall, I think township will still do better with 3 homes and 3 taxes for 3 homes versus a little bit bigger home.
And I'll just go on record without knowing what this board might decide. I'm just going to say that if, hypothetical, if the option to grant the 3 lot splits were to be denied, if you look at this and you said, well, I guess administratively, you can do 275s, as I understand it, if I'm, and I want to
You
say,
can do a 70 and 80.
or 70 and 80. I guess my point is if it was only split into two lots and you said, hey, I can get more money for in other words, if it was a 60 and a 90, if that was an option, right? If I had that 10 feet additional on top of the 3.8, that 60 would kind of alleviate the concern about that side yard setback. And while I'm certainly not suggesting that's what you should or shouldn't do, in the event that we were not to grant this, I guess,
If you've seen my home, right now, it's well within the envelope of the 50 feet.
Mhm.
If I had to add another 20 feet to it, it'd be wasted.
right, that's why I
You
said,
couldn't do nothing with it. The original, if somebody bought my house today, they would not really get a lot of benefit of the 20 feet that's really off to one side,
correct.
so that it,
And my point is if this were, if the lot dimensions were different, and we could get this split done by just merely adding 10 foot on to that side of the home to give that, 5, 10, whatever that is, to make that side yard setback conforming, it would potentially make it an easier split for at least this board member to grant, right? So in other words, it isn't all about, if you were to make the decision, hey, you know what, assuming hypothetical, the split were to be denied, and we said, well, you need at least 5 feet, 6 feet, 8, I don't know what that is on that side yard. I don't want to get into numbers because, but whatever that is, I don't feel like it's got to be a full 25 feet for me to be willing to grant a split that isn't right down the middle. I don't, to your point, I don't see value in slapping 25 feet on the side of this and making the other lot that much less valuable. If you could get away with 10 feet and the result was a 90-foot lot, well, 90-foot lot might generate more revenue than a 75-foot. I don't know that, but
Agreed.
that would be an example of where someone might say, well, I really want a side, a garage, side entrance garage, and 90 feet will allow me to build my dream home. Maybe it would fetch a little more. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but.
I think it would. I
Yeah.
don't think it might create a 175,000 shortfall versus a 200,000 shortfall.
Yeah, and I can't speak to the property values. I'm just saying, as an example, if there were more lots and we had that ability to steal 5 feet from 2 other lots to give us the 10 feet we needed and everything else worked out, that might be an example where it would be
6 feet, the
easier.
minimum setback, I believe on a 50-foot lot
I think
is
it's-
6
I think
feet.
14 is the
No, that's.
6 and 8, right?
6 and 8,
So
7
I'm
and
short,
7.
I'm short 3 feet, is what I'm short.
Yeah.
If I could cut a foot and a half out of the other 2 lots, I'd gladly do that if that made everybody happy, because 48 and a half and 50 feet, the house is gonna be the same size. I'm still gonna keep with the setbacks and the ordinances, and
But then
won't
you
need a
go back to the
variance
lot.
if we did that. And if that made the township happy, I'll work with that. Like I said, I've lost 150,000, remodeled the house twice, already remodeled it once before it flooded from the rainwater. That was when the water was really low, so the water drained naturally, I think, by gravity versus having the pumps to do the work. So I've got 300,000 to remodel on it twice. So the option for me is I really don't want to lose any more money, and if it's a matter of that you have to throw 10, 20 grand at the legal system to not lose 200, well, the numbers justify that you have to throw the 10, 20, at the legal system.
I can understand it.
When this property was platted, it was platted as 3 lots though, and then they combined it into one,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at the street itself, seems like everything on the street is narrow and unconforming, non-conforming to me.
But then maybe we need to, when we adopt our perfecting, or implementing ordinances for our planning, as we go through our master plan implementation process, we should look at that, because this happens all the time. But we have an overlay that says 70 feet, and that's what we've adopted as our rules, and we either say those are the rules, or we ignore them all the time.
Well, I don't think there's many exceptions to ignore them all the time. This is kind of a unique situation. I agree with you, Mr. Witt, that I think if you're doing a brand-new subdivision, I think your 70 feet makes a lot more sense, because then all the homes in that subdivision will be 70 feet. My neighbor's 50 feet, his neighbor's 50 feet. So there's, the majority of lots on that street, I believe, are 50-foot lots, and like I said, the largest home, 3,500 square feet, is built on a 50-foot lot. So he literally used every inch of his envelope, height, width, and depth.
They all are 50 feet,
We're all plotted 50.
yes.
Yeah, and in 1923, when that was platted, it made sense.
Well,
And
for
that's,
sure.
and it's, we have some that are just under 40 on their original plat, but like you would never do that today. So
Right.
going to the plat isn't always the right answer.
And that was one piece of property that I cited, it was the DeMasters property.
80
It was
feet.
two 40-foot lots that were platted that way, and
Right.
the township allowed a parting of the properties into two tax IDs.
He purchased 80 feet, one tax ID, got split to 240s. He built two homes on it, which is kind of the precedent the reason why we wrote that down as a
And
precedent.
again, for me personally, there were two. He didn't have an option to make it right. And here there exists an option to
No,
be right.
well, here there's an option to go from 3 to 2. That's not making it right.
No, to meet our ordinance.
Understood.
There was no,
But had you kept your ordinance, you didn't have to let him split. He bought the 80-foot lot.
I understand, but he also went to court and there was a judge involved in that.
No, he didn't go
No,
to
there
court.
was
He gave him a
no-
split through
Oh,
the
that was
city.
the other one, I'm sorry. That was
So you did exactly what I'm
I,
asking.
but
for.
again, that's two lots and we could never,
You did exactly what I'm asking for today.
not at this board level.
It was 80 foot, you didn't have to split it to 240. And 40 is a lot smaller than 50.
I appreciate
So
it.
you
I
violated
understand.
you violated your ordinances, and I understand why you did. I think it was a good idea. I think it was beneficial for the resident, and I think it was beneficial for the township. So all I'm asking for is the same treatment that you gave my neighbor.
I understand it. We have ordinances
You
and,
violated those.
you know what, sir? I'm representing 25,000 people. You're representing yourself. So when
Yeah, but
I
I'm
talk,
talking
I
about-
appreciate it if you don't interrupt me, okay?
I will not interrupt you, sir, and I apologize that I did, but we are going to talk about the facts.
I agree.
If you don't say you violated the ordinances, then we're missing the whole point of the conversation.
Through this appeal process, we have not violated the ordinance.
No, when you took the 80 foot and split into 240.
That's not violating the ordinance. Township board has discretion to make decisions. There's no violation there.
Right, yeah,
Somebody came up with a set of facts, and they made a decision. Okay, that wasn't violating any ordinance.
but either way, it's semantics. I think it's probably more sensitive to the notion, to say that we violated the ordinance. But I certainly understand the argument that you're making.
And again, like if we go through the planning process and we say I understand what you're saying about they're platted as 50. If we as a board decide that we think they should be 50, let's change our ordinance so it represents 50, so we don't have to hear an appeal like yours. I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
But with the system we have, it says, you shouldn't, to Mr. Tominelli's point, planning recommendations say, don't create a non-conforming when you can help it. This would create non-conforming right away. So any additions to that structure along that property line would be non-conforming and require zoning board of appeals. 100%, right? Along that southern property line, because it's within the area, it would be a variance.
Mr. Raquez
So-
said I didn't have to get a ZBA approval.
No, I'm not saying you do because it exists, and we'd be appealing the split, but if anyone ever did an addition, because you're not gonna, you said you might move, and somebody else might say, you know what, my dream home has another wing that goes down here on the south side of the property, and they would have to go and get a variance, and we would create that hardship. And I find that troublesome when we create a hardship unnecessarily.
I grant it. Right now, there's one existing. So I hope you can find it in yourselves to be able to right that wrong when I got the advice from the township to combine it to one tax ID. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. And that was 26 years ago.
Any other discussion, opinions, ideas, questions?
One comment here.
Mhm.
The township did create this hardship by allowing the structure to be placed 3 feet off the property line. Okay, that's all.
When it was built, yeah.
Any other ideas or thoughts or questions? All right, is there a motion from a board member to deny or approve this lot split or any alternative?
I'd like to make a motion to table this. Based on some of the information I heard tonight, I would like to do a little bit more research.
Okay. All right, that's an option, right, Mr. Huth?
Of course.
Is there a second?
I'll
I-
support that.
Yeah,
Okay. Motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado. All right. Any discussion on the motion?
My personal feeling is I think when we go through and look at our zoning ordinance, we should match the plats most of the time. Because the idea that, and this is a weird situation, like,
I understand.
because you have the capability to make it right, it makes it complicated, right?
Actually, that makes it good.
No, but I'm saying that because you have the ability, because this property has the ability to meet our zoning ordinance, it makes it complicated in this situation. If our zoning ordinance recognized that we were a, almost 200-year-old community that has lots that don't meet what Pulte's building in northern Macomb County and accommodated this, I think it should. I think we should be able to be nimble and not have to have you jump through these hoops. But we, as a collective board, have built those hoops and said, like, that's the rules we're playing by.
Right.
So, I'm sympathetic individually, but I feel like the rules sort of say, like, we went through a process, said this is where we are, and I think tabling it to get more information, if that's what the board needs, I think that's
If
wise.
anybody'd like to see the house, I'd be happy to, to meet you there, show you the house, and, I got it staked off for 350-foot lots right now, because when I understand some of the code change, so I could not take my driveway adjacent to the lot line like you could with your sidewalk. So that, because down the street, there's two driveways that are 6 inches apart, and they told me that they did that before that code changed, so.
Yeah, there's, right,
I met the new stuff as we did the new concrete and everything else, we did right.
for certain, yep.
I would encourage the board to look at the Macomb County GIS system, to look on South River Road and North River Road and see how many residents or houses there are 1 and 2 feet off the property line on one side.
Okay. Any other board comments?
Well, the reason I asked to table it is this has been going on, it appears. It was denied in 2021.
22, I think.
Assessing, they stand corrected, February 22nd of 22. And I just think there's some information that I heard today that wasn't in the 12 pages of information that, and I didn't do my homework well enough to make a.
This is only our second case like this, so I mean, I think it's fair, if you're uncomfortable acting, this isn't like, this is the 27th case we've heard in our last 4-year period. This is only the second one, and so, I don't mind taking, I certainly don't object to tabling. The only person who I would suppose might be concerned with that would be the appellate, but, if it's.
I'm happy if you guys, rather than do something rash, I'm happy if you guys give it more thought on my behalf. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna get too many more people like me coming to you, because there's not a whole lot of vacant lots left, in Harrison Township. So this is kind of unique. It's keeping with prior precedent, I think. So to me, this is, what you guys did with this board is perfect for someone like me, even though you may not get too many people like me.
I, personally, brand new, haven't had anything like this yet, and wouldn't feel comfortable voting today based on the information. I feel like I need to do a little more research and then ask some more questions on our end for the township to make sure my decision is, I'm secure and, with that, so.
I understand.
I would appreciate, I know it's been tabled before, but.
And could I just,
I'm
could I
fine
ask,
to table it.
just a clarifying question maybe that might help? It looks like the house is askew on the lot on your drawing, Mr. Mislinski?
Not much.
It looks like the rear is closer to the property line than the front line based on the way
Yes.
you drew it?
Well, wait. When you say the rear, you mean the water side is the rear?
Yes, the rear of the rear.
I'd have to look at it
The
again.
drawing shows the rear being closer to the front.
And GIS kind of shows that a little bit, too.
And so I was wondering if you had that lot, what you shot on that rear corner.
I don't recall, I'd have to look at it.
Just because if it.
Yeah,
if
not
it-
offhand.
No, but if you have it and you could provide it, that would,
I could.
Because it might just be the way it's showing up in the PDF, and that's why I'm asking, because the way it looks though is that it's actually tighter on that.
When we meet
Rear
again,
side.
I'll bring it in, but my memory serves me right. The tightest it is out in front.
Okay,
Yeah, and it could be inches if it's off, I don't know, it's.
That's why I was just curious if you had it.
And the other thing, it occurs to me is, we would likely, and I'll kind of look to Mr. Huth for this, but we would likely want to table to a date specific as opposed to just tabling this, because now the applicant, I mean, in other words, I feel like it's imperative for this board to say this is when we would reconsider this. Does that sound fair?
Well, most importantly, as long as the applicant knows when you're coming back. So if he's providing information, or if some board members want to go to the home or the site, you might not know tonight by when they could have that done.
Sure.
So I would just say,
I guess my point is I would rather have instead of us waiting and then me emailing board members and asking him, we could table it to the 10th, we could table it to the 24th.
24th is if I can.
Is everybody, would this board be comfortable with that?
I would be comfortable.
And before I ask you to change your motion, would the appellate be comfortable with that?
Yeah, absolutely, and if you folks need something from me, in the meantime, like
Sure.
if it has to do with that drawing that Mr. Witt's requiring, I'm a complete ignorant on any of that, actual jargon that's used for that. I'm happy to go out and, have something done if it needs to be redone.
Yep.
To your
Yeah,
satisfaction.
and I'm not asking for you to create, I just didn't know if he had the information, just the way the drawing looks.
We
Not
might-
not with me tonight. And when you say the 24th, you're referring to February?
February 24th.
Okay.
I just want to let the board know I will not be here on the 24th, so, side
Okay.
note.
I mean, just in the interest of being informal, is everybody comfortable with the 24th? Would that, you're okay with changing your motion?
Yes, sir.
So continued support?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, I feel like we've had a fair amount of discussion on this, and if why do now, we can kick away for 4 weeks. Unless there's any other discussion, are we comfortable? Okay. We've got a motion with support to table this until February 24th. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you for your time.
Yep. All right, next on the agenda. H2 regarding a shuttle bus driver. Board members, Anthony Arnold has many years of experience as a shuttle bus driver. He worked for Smart. He's a certified CDL driver. I believe he's currently working part-time, but the thought would be to bring this individual on pending the pre-employment screening to be kind of a backup driver. I perceive this to be a semi-retired individual and someone who could step in if we needed someone to fill in. So be looking for a motion to approve hiring shuttle bus driver Anthony Arnold pending a clear pre-employment screening.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
I heard Mr. Olgiati. Support by Mr. Olgiati, motion by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, Cable TV Committee. Members David Brado and Patrick Lineberry currently serve on the Cable TV Committee. Their terms are set to expire this April. Both are interested in being reappointed. Therefore, I recommend their reappointment for 2-year terms to expire April 13th, 2027. Is there a
I'll make
motion?
that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
A motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on the agenda, item H4. One of the HVAC rooftop units in our library recently the heater experienced a failure. The service call revealed that the heat exchanger has failed. The unit is old and a replacement part could not be located. We did even take a look to see if we could replace the unit. And it's, although we found the manufacturer, we could not find a distributor. The initial cost was in excess of $14,000 because it would require an adapter, curb adapter, custom-made item. Not necessarily a bad idea to replace a failing heater, but we anticipate that roof is going to be modified, so the pending remodel in addition to the library will likely eliminate those rooftop units. So buying a brand-new unit, putting it in place for a year and a half and scrapping, it just seems like an irresponsible expenditure. So we looked at what other alternatives we had. There are 2 rooftop units. The one unit can typically keep up heat, but when we had the single digits, it struggled. Short term, we utilized the heat from here, but one of the things that we came up with was to utilize one of the 2 furnaces that are in there. There's a primary trunk line that runs right underneath us. It comes right out by the library door. So we figured Aero Heating and Cooling typically takes care of the service work around here. When we had to prepare this, we did an emergency expenditure, estimated a cost not to exceed $6,000. I believe it's substantially less than that. I just wanted the board approval in case we ran into anything. But basically, they drew off of the ductwork, and you can see it in the library now. So we've got some heat augment at that end of the library. It was the cheapest way to keep the library warm for the next 2 winters. So I'm looking for a motion to approve a budget not to exceed $6,000 for ductwork and improvements to Rosso Hall and the library HVAC system.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support, and I just want to say that, I want to thank Mr. Verkest and some of our maintenance and water and sewer guys, because there was nothing going to be, would give me more heartburn than spending over $14,000 on a brand-new heating unit that would most likely be scrapped within a year. So they all worked together, and they came up with an alternative by just rerouting ductwork. I think it was ingenious, and it saved us a lot of money, so thank you, Mr. Verkest, thank you, Water and Sewer, and thank you, Maintenance.
It was a combination, I appreciate that. So a couple of things. One was part of the cost, we weren't sure if we needed a fire damper in the system. We were able to determine that. The second part of this is part of the reason why these rooftop units seem not to last as long as we might like, was the way the cold air return system works. So in the interest of making the other unit more efficient, Aero also came up with a way to redirect the cold air return for the existing units to make them, because the AC still works on the existing unit. So it's just the heat exchanger that went. So it was a combination of, we've got our maintenance supervisor is a retired HVAC guy, and we've got a resident who provides our HVAC services, who, has an eye toward being frugal, so everybody worked together. So, any other discussion?
Was this, I don't believe it to be the case, but this wasn't impacted from the remodel.
It had nothing to do, no.
It's just a failure on the unit.
Yeah, the physical heat exchanger reached the point where it was so porous that it sensors it stopped working. When he went up there, it was, maybe not Swiss cheese, but it was pretty rough.
Okay.
So, I don't think the two were related whatsoever. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Last on my agenda items, item H5, regarding the South River Road path. Last year, we were awarded a $1.12 million grant to construct a multi-use path along South River Road from Bridgeview to L'Anse Creuse. We are thankful to our Congressman John James for his work in securing this grant. The next step is to solicit design engineering specifically for the project. Wade Trim prepared all of the concepts and cost estimates for the grant application, so it seems logical that they would be most efficient at helping us solicit bids for the engineering. Attached is a proposal from Wade Trim to prepare the bid spec for the following work for this path project. Number 1, we need design engineering. Number 2, we need some cost estimates for easement acquisition. We would like an engineer's estimate of the construction costs and a budget estimate for the construction engineering. Oftentimes, when we choose an engineering firm to do the design engineering for a project, we also utilize that firm for construction engineering. So, in order for us to solicit this work, we're asking for the proposal from Wade Trim to basically help us solicit these bids and prepare that spec. The grant requires a match from us. I think the total project is something like 1.4 million. The county, Macomb County Department of Roads, does have, I would say, the Public Act 51 is the public act that determines how money is distributed from the state to the various local agencies. One of the things that Public Act 51 requires is Macomb County, our county agency, the Department of Roads, has to spend a certain amount of that on non-motorized path work. So they have already been a part of the preliminary meetings with the state. MDOT really oversees this grant. It's a federal grant, but the feds don't get involved, but they rely on the DOTs in each state to do this. So we've already met with MDOT. The county's already committed to some of the match. In order to most likely assure that the project happens and there's sufficient funding, the recommendation was for us to pay for this engineering using general fund. There's not a decision on that to be made today, but that was the recommendation. One of the advantages to that is MDOT does have certain restrictions on what you can do. If we pay for the design engineering with general fund dollars, we've got a lot more freedom. It's likely that design engineering would likely cost less, less strings attached, so forth. Still have to design the project to MDOT standards, but the engineering process goes a lot easier. But at this point, the recommendation would be to approve the proposal from Wade Trim to prepare the construction engineering bid spec for the South River multi-use path at a cost not to exceed $69.50.
$6,950.
Yes, sir.
I'll support that.
Okay. There's support.
Support.
All right. Discussion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is public comments. They can be about any subject that you like. We ask that you try to limit those to 5 minutes in length. So we'll open the floor for public comment.
C. William Bardell, 28-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. Just to remind everybody, be careful out there on the ice and check out Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the floor for public comment. Any board comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you, Board.
Yep.